Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's Soccer National Team Podcast. Chris and I here again, hoping to be chatting about tactics for the U.S. men's team. And obviously, if you've been watching, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. So who knows where this conversation is going to go. Things we're hoping to get into, discussing whether or not we think moving the World Cup to the winter was a smart choice or not. Tying that into all the injury updates kind of gives you a hint as to how we feel about this maybe getting moved. And then some positional changes perhaps for the U.S. men's national team. We're kind of going to be all over the place. Chris and I were just catching up on the MLS games over the weekend. Chris, you're a huge MLS fan, right? You definitely caught both those games?
I don't really know what to say about those games.
That's right. Oh, I was giving Chris a rundown. If you didn't watch the games, LAFC making it to the finals. They thrashed Austin 3-0, and then the Philadelphia Union scoring 3 goals in 11 minutes in the second half to take them up 3-1. So we're going to have an MLS Cup final this weekend in LAFC. If you're an MLS person, I think it's worth giving it a shot. Here's what I will say about all of this. If you're a U.S. men's soccer fan, you've probably heard a lot of the debate of, why we should play players wherever. And if you're in the United States, you have your varying opinions about MLS soccer and whether the Premier League's better, whether it's not better, and all of those things. But what I can say definitively is that the style of soccer that gets played is very CONCACAF. It's very reflective of the fact that we're in CONCACAF.
Yes, it is.
The players are very, and this is obviously going to be a stretch, and so I'm making some exaggerations, but just to draw this point home, they're very self-centered. They're very image-oriented. It's a lot of spectacle. Players really getting involved with each other, and I'm not saying players don't come together in European leagues, but the way that it happens is so different. I was pleased to see that it wasn't a lot of dribbling. It wasn't a lot of showmanship on the ball. Teams knocked the ball around pretty good. They got into the attacking third pretty well. There was a decent amount of boom ball of guys just kind of hitting the ball somewhere, hoping to get out of danger. But just the egos, the nastiness, the guys that after the tackles, the way the tackles are going in, the referee's not getting control of the game. If you told me that the games that I watched were like the United States playing Panama and the United States playing Mexico and the United States playing Costa Rica, I would have believed you, because just the style of soccer that was there was exactly the same.
Well, and that kind of makes sense given what we've talked about in the Federation's preference sometimes for these MLS players, and wonder if maybe that's part of why. The MLS players are used to playing more basic game of soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to CONCACAF qualifying, that's what they're thinking they need.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it would make a lot of sense to actually just go ahead and outplay your opponent,
right,
rather than play to their game.
Correct.
What we did a few times over this qualifying period, but definitely not every game over this qualifying period.
Right, and it's a nice segue into what you and I want to talk about. You use the expression outplayed, and depending on the people you talk to, depending on the creator, the media outlet, whoever it is, there's tons of stats in games, right? Shots on goal, shots on target, scoring opportunities. Those are various terms. Completed passes, pass accuracy, ball possession percentage, right? All of these numbers come in, and they all can give you a very misleading view of what the game was really like. Soccer just is one of those sports where sometimes the stats don't show the way the pitch was tilted, right? Sometimes they do. Sometimes you outshoot your team 19-2 and you win the game 4-0, but other times you outshoot your team 19-1 and the other team wins 1-0. And so that brings us to this concept that I want to dive into of tactics. And not just specifically the U.S. men's tactics, but like what are we even talking about when we're talking tactics? And to
Mm.
give everybody kind of like a loose elementary definition, the tactics is the style of soccer, both offensively and defensively, that the coach seeks to employ. It is the way that the team itself functions on the field, not the way that one specific individual functions, not the way goals are scored, not the way it's the way the ball moves with the team as a
Mm.
unit, right? And Chris, give us, you
Move
watch,
within that
yeah,
unit.
right. You watch tons of games in Bundesliga, you have caught an MLS game or two, but, like in the EPL, give us some of the teams that have like some unique tactic styles and just kind of give us a brief rundown of like what that style looks like. I know we've talked about it before.
Um, I mean, the easiest one to start out with is right now is Manchester City. Um, so their tactic is to just control the ball. Um, that's in offensively and defensively. Um, they they have the ball. A possession is usually the most important thing. Is make the smart pass, make the easy pass. We can keep the ball. Um, and keep moving the ball so that we can wear the other team down. Um, and then they do have some really skilled, dynamic players up front who then, once they eventually move the ball to the final third, they can make some incredible plays to score goals. Um, and defensively, it's the quick press that as soon as the ball turns over, everybody steps up to the man in front of them, and they pressure the ball to get it back as soon as possible. They're just trying to hold possession.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We saw that style, I believe, 8 years ago when Spain won the World Cup. That was something that they were
yeah,
like notorious for, right? They won every single game 1-0. It was so bizarre. I think they had like one game where it was 2-0 or 2-1, but they just their style, their tactic, their goal was we are going to have the ball the whole game. And when we lose it, I think there was like a quote going around that the head coach had said like you have 10 seconds to win the ball back or something. So like the ball turns over, everybody's got a man, everybody's going for the ball, you're shutting down passing lanes. And you're getting the ball back, and the other team doesn't see it, and it just grinds them into the ground. You just defense. If you're the team defending that, you're just exhausted.
true. Well, yeah, and you mentioned Spain. I mean, it originated with Pep, who is coaching Man City now when he was coaching Barcelona. And that was a lot of those Spanish players who then won the World Cup. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, if counter to that style would be a big, a good example of it right now would be Tottenham. They are very much a counter-attacking team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they don't possess the ball a lot. Obviously, they can.
Right.
They can pass the ball around, but especially when they're playing against the other top teams in the Premier League or in Europe, they're not trying hard to always keep the ball. When they have the ball, it's go forward, attack the goal as quick as possible. Um, you see when they win the ball back, it's everybody goes forward quick as you can, which means defensively, they actually don't press up hard. They sit back a little bit. They give the other team some space in their defensive side, and they sit into their defensive third and wait for a good opportunity to steal the ball and then go on that counter attack. It works really well because of Harry Kane, the fact that he
Mm.
is a great outlet. Their first pass after they win the ball back almost always goes up to Kane, and he makes a second pass to Son or Charlison or whoever's outside of him, to continue that breakaway. Usually ends up in a chance on goal. Um, again, that style is they're not so worried about keeping possession. Their main goal is get them out of our box, and when we win the ball, attack as fast as possible.
Right. And I like that you use those two examples because when we looked at some of the United States games in qualifying, there was so much hype. I mean, even me, like Ryan and I, we just hyped up possession so much. And especially in our game against Mexico, I was so excited to see, 64% possession and a 2-0 game and winning. But it is worth noting that when we played a team like Canada, Canada's specific tactic was designed so that we would dominate possession, right? Canada was
Exactly.
expecting us to have possession. And so I do believe that, as we try to
And you
educate,
have when you
right,
have players like Alfonso Davies, like can do
right,
that because he's faster
exactly.
than everybody else on the field.
Yes.
So
You
yeah,
got an
you let
outlet,
them
you
come
want to
up
hit
the
him. Yeah.
field, open up the back, and as soon as you win the ball, you just play him through, and he goes and scores a goal.
Right, exactly. And he's extremely dangerous, right? Just like you said with Tottenham, like Harry Kane is so dangerous. And I really feel like as we continue to try to open this game up to Americans as we try to continue to push soccer. Soccer is such a different game from most of the sports that we see in the United States, right? Like hockey is explosive, it's back and forth. It has some similarities to soccer, but for the most part, it's just like I mean, it's probably closer to basketball on ice, right? Basketball, tons of points. It's a little bit more centered around individual players. Yes, there's team tactics and presses and all those things, but football, it's very explosive. It's very short to it. So as we begin to build this concept and we continue to educate people to make them understand the game, to appreciate it, to love it, knowing the World Cup is on our soil 4 years from now, I feel like it's worth breaking this game down in a manner where people can understand um, all of these weird nuances. So when they're listening to the game and, John Stone's like, they're playing a high press and they're going after, or they're playing a low block or whatever it is, or like they're not giving up the midfield, people have an idea. And so games like Canada was designed, their tactic defensively was don't let anybody behind you, right? We're going to concede X amount of space in the field. We're going to shut down passing lanes starting right here in our final third. And we're going to make sure that if the United States tries to hit anything into the box, that we're just drowning them out in numbers, right? Whereas we contrast that to Japan and Saudi Arabia, who played a high press, right? You could call it a high block if you wanted, but it's a high press. And so they played more like Manchester City. Every time you lose the ball, we go get it. We put them under pressure. We try to run it down. And collectively as a team, all of the passing lanes get shut down. So as we think about the United States, not the games that we played against, not from press conferences, not from any of that, based on what you've seen, Chris, I have two questions. One, can you identify a single solidified tactic that the United States implements? And two, what is that or those tactics?
Um, you know, it's a little strange, honestly. Um, don't think. I think one of our big issues, and I think this is where we see a disconnect between a lot of the players and Berhalter and his system, whatever he may call that system, I don't know. It seems like offensively we want to play that possession game. No,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Oh, for sure.
we want to control the ball, which we did a lot in CONCACAF. We did control the ball pretty well. Um, as we've said, if that's your goal, if your goal is to control possession, and when you lose the ball, you have to try to get it back as quick as possible. I don't feel like I don't feel like Berhalter stresses that. When I watch our team, it seems like when we lose the ball, the first guy presses hard, everybody else kind of drops back into what some might call a mid block, where they're not dropping way back and just to soak up pressure, but we're also not pressing to get the ball back. Um, is confusing to me and watching it, so I imagine it's confusing for a lot of the players to play as well.
Agreed.
Um,
I mean, I know it was frustrating for us
yeah,
if at the high school level that we played at, right? If your head coach is telling you, go get the ball. Because I'm going to be honest, even in massive stadiums, you know what your coach's voice sounds like. I promise you these guys can hear their coach, right? I promise you,
oh yeah,
even in these
you can.
massive stadiums, they can hear it. And you can see him, you can hear the mics on the stand. If your coach is screaming and clapping and telling, like, go get it, like, we got to get the ball, or like they're putting their, stop, no, stop, right? Like, the players are doing this. And the problem that I see us having is we have players like Aronson who can run for forever, right? And they are totally willing to go shut that down and try to shut it down. Basilic does probably 75, 80% of the time. But Jesus Ferreira doesn't. Not all the time. He does it at times. Pepe was right? And so you have the couple strikers and a winger trying to play a high press with, like you said, everybody else kind of playing into a mid block. And if you're a player doing that, you get defeated and discouraged if you're that guy just chasing the ball, because it's actually pointless. Like, you're actually wasting energy and time, and it's not worth it. And so I agree with you. Like, if Berhalter is going to make that a style, he has to force the issue. You got to be on your players that's what you want. And if you're seeing your players not doing it, maybe you got to give it up.
Yeah, and that's something. It's really hard, I think, on the professional level, go from just to analyze the difference between club teams and national teams. Because the reality is, I coached high school soccer for a while, and I had people ask, like, do you have a style that you play? It's like, can't have a style that I play, because I work with who is in the school. Whoever my players are, I gotta play a style that fits them. My style might change from year to year depending on the ability level, the experience level, and even just the personality of my players. And that is, not true at the college or club levels, because the coaches can recruit. You go for who you want. You say, I want to play this style. I'm going to go find players that fit my style and fit my personality and vision for the game.
Right. I mean, what a huge
Some
difference.
nations,
Yeah.
some countries can do that. If you're Germany or Spain or England or Brazil, and you've got 50 or 60 players in the player pool, you can do that. This national team cannot do
Right.
that.
We're not there yet. And yeah.
We have maybe a starting 11 that's in the top tier of the world, maybe. And beyond that, we have at most 30 guys really can compete internationally. And so we got to play whatever style fits those players.
Mm-hmm. I completely back. I like the point that you made about, the difference that we have between recruiting and not recruiting, right? And, while high school soccer might sound like a stretch, it's not really, because it's hitting at the point that, like, the U.S. men's team or the France national team is literally made up of just who's there, right? Like, your high school team was made up of who goes to your high school. And so
Exactly.
I think, you allude to the question that lots of people have been asking, that's kind of eating at everybody as we think about Greg Berhalter, which is that what he's not doing? Is he forcing a style on our players that doesn't suit the guys that we have on the field, right? And I believe it's getting masked underneath, right, this bigger thing that we're doing. So we have this, like, umbrella of our midfielders, right? Like you said, we have this starting 11, and specifically our midfielders, some wingers who are world-class caliber players. And when they get the ball and they knock the ball around and they possess in the midfield, we look good, we feel good, we generate chances, and it's exciting, right? But that's not really our tactic. I think that above that is really the true tactics, and they're we kind of can't see them. It's like that double rainbow, right? One of them's kind of faint, but we're just focusing on the one we can see. And I think that other rainbow is like the building out of the back that doesn't really work that great. This like pseudo high press that we never really enforce, that doesn't really happen. This awkward, are we man marking? Are we zone marking? What happens to our defensive midfielder when we go up? Where do our wingers pinch in on defense? Where's the striker go? Like, there are lots of questions that are like really begging at this point, knowing, I mean, it's the 2nd of November. We have 19 days. 19 days, and we're going to be playing Wales. And, I mean, we'll get into the injury stuff after that. You look at the tactics that we have to have. You have to know what you're doing, right? I mean, you need to know when you're on the field, and we've talked about this before, that when I get the ball here, this is what our team is doing, right? So for the unsoccer fans that might be tuning into this, you need to know what your team is doing so that you can understand your options, right? And I'm going to word it to you like this. If you've gone into a brand new restaurant or ice cream store and the menu has 56 options, you're going to stand there for probably at least 5 full minutes before you make up your mind, right? That's not helpful. That's not successful. And in soccer, you do not have 5 minutes to decide what your options are. When we're on the field and somebody plays me the ball at left back, I need to know that I'm looking for Tyler Adams to go forward. I am looking to hit a ball deep over the top, or I'm going back to Matt Turner, and there's no other options, right? I need to know as a center midfielder that when that wing back gets the ball, I'm either checking to the outside to give him a give and go, I am turning and cutting, I am drawing a man, we need to know, and it needs to just happen. And there are games where I feel like we've got it, we have the flow, it works, and there are other games like we saw recently with Japan and Saudi Arabia where I feel like not only did we not have a tactic, whatever it was, nobody knew. Nobody was aware of what it was.
True. That is very true. I think, that speaks to, again, one of the difficulties of national team play is, they get together like 4 times a year, maybe. And it's for like, obviously during qualifying, it's more than that, but it's for like 2 weeks time at the most usually. And so they just don't have a lot of time to get that nailed down. I think a big part of our problem is what you were speaking about, is that we do have those guys who are playing in the top leagues in the world, playing with the top players in the world. They are used to a certain style and level of play, and that is clashing with supporting cast who is not playing in that, not used to that, and maybe not up to that ability level anyways. So it does become a hard question of, do we push our lower guys and, really try to elevate their game to be able to play at this other style or at this other level? Do we tell our better players, like, hey, have this system as a team, our team needs to operate and look a certain way for us to be able to play together. Have to let go of whatever your other style was and play with what we have here as our team.
Right.
So far I have not seen that Greg Berhalter has that answer.
No, I haven't either, and I think, the reason that we're having this conversation in the manner that we are is, because of that, right? Like, I wouldn't really feel too compelled to talk about it in the manner we are. I would just be like, oh, how do our tactics change, knowing that we might not have Weston McKennie, or we might, we're not going to have the center back or whatever it is. So to kind of start to go down that route, I think about what you said, and I think about Tim Ream and Anthony Robinson, right? They play together at Fulham. They've been playing together for a number of years. They know how the other person plays. To me, right, not just as a fan, but as a coach and as another player on the field, I like that confidence that my center back and his left back are going to have when it comes to needing to know what you're going to do, right? So if I'm the center back, okay, and we'll get into like a tactics thing, right? When you're defending and the other team is attacking up the flank, right? There's a guy carrying the ball at your left back, right? And he's attacking him. He's going to try to beat him or get to the byline because the ball's either going into the box, right? And so here's your tactic. Your defensive style is, I want him to go to the corner, right? Brandon wanted him. Let him hit the ball in the box. We're going to win it out of the box, right? Or his job is to turn him around and get him to work the ball back along the top of the 18. Tim Ream knows what Anthony Robinson is going to try to do and what he's capable of. He knows what players are going to beat him. He knows based on his body language that, he's beat. That guy's going to torch him and turn the corner. He also has to be able to decide the guy behind him that he's kind of marking with his other center back. What's going to happen to that guy once my back gets beat? Right? Where am I going? If Robinson gets beat, am I the next guy in? Right? And you know what I mean? And there's obviously like a lot more nuance to this, but Zimmerman and Ream have both played enough with Robinson that they know that, right? That's why I think Ream should be there, right? Because I don't want to see Walker Zimmerman get hurt against Wales and then we're stuck playing a random, right? I just don't think it's worth it. So given that that's kind of my example for the sort of center back situation, how do you feel our tactics have changed knowing that we might not have Luca de la Torre and we might not have Weston McKennie at least at full strength? We're probably not going to have Luca de la Torre at all. We may not have Weston McKennie in full capacity until we get to the knockout stages.
I think it's an opportunity actually to try something. And I know you don't want to be trying new things at the World Cup. But we were talking about lineups. We had talked about maybe having one of our attacking wingers play more of like that central top of the diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a 4-3-3, play more of like a 4-2-3-1 style, where we have like those three attacking mids really pressing up. I think it's an opportunity to push towards that. Leeds, this weekend, Leeds beat Liverpool, and Aaronson played a lot in that center attacking mid role. They're a little bit fluid, so he moved outside to the right and to the left throughout the game, which is something, we do have the quality of players to do that. I think this is a great opportunity to see if we can make more of our attacking players. I think that's been the biggest frustration for so many U.S. fans throughout qualifying over this last year of friendlies has been, we see how good our attacking players are, and we see their skill level, and we see them succeed. Even if it's in limited time, we see them do well at the club level, and we see them have flashes of good things during national team games, but it's like something's holding them back. Something's keeping them from reaching their full potential. This would be an opportunity to try that, more attacking players forward, have Tyler Adams and Yunus Musa in there and have them stay, a little bit further back defensively and hold a little more defensively, and let the attackers flow a little more freely up front.
Agreed. And, we talked, when we initially talked about the teams and tactics, right? We had Man City and Tottenham. And they were like the extremes. Most teams, right, we have to believe now function somewhere in the middle of that, right? We have a team like Liverpool. You have a team like Chelsea. They have this ability to play an interesting style of on the break, right? When they're on the break, they're trying to generate numbers. They're not really just solely relying on like one or two talented players. Granted, they can do that and it happens, but they like to break with numbers. They like to come forward, and when they get the ball, they like to move the ball around trying to make the other team slip up, right? So the ball goes up into the upper left. They try to play the ball in the box. Maybe they play it back out. Nobody overcommits. So the ball comes back. They swing it around to the other side of the field, and they're waiting for one guy to miss his mark. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's there, right? And you see it so much in Liverpool. Liverpool is so talented when they attack. One, because you just have Mo Salah, and the man is just like a legend. But they will just absolutely punish you for when you make those mistakes. The reason I say this is because when I watched the United States attack all through qualifying, it was like we couldn't make up our mind on who we wanted to be. We would start a fast break like Tottenham, then we'd put the brakes on full speed, and you'd think we were transitioning more into like a Barcelona type style, but we're trying to play a Barcelona style without anybody who wants to take the initiative to, one, make the run as a striker, and two, try to hit that ball. Right? Now, has it happened? Yes. We've seen some beautiful balls get hit, a bunch of, little chip shots and toe lobs. I think like Ferreira's hit one. Like, I know McKinney's hit one. I know Dessa's hit one. I know, like, we have guys who can do it. But there's like that awkward pause where our players get into that final third, and then they're like, what are we supposed to do? Like, is it,
There is.
is it him? Is he supposed to do it, right? And I was talking to my dad about this, and he made a really interesting point that I'll bring up, and then I'll get your take on it, which is when you have players on the field that the media hypes up so much, right? You think about Christian Pasilic, everything you've heard from him, right? Everything you hear about the guy, Captain America, he's this, the World Cup commercials are all about him. If you're a younger player on that team, right? Like a Brendan Aronson, like a Luca De La Torre, right? When you get the ball on the field, right? What do you want to do with it? Don't you want to give it to him? Don't you want to get him the ball? And we talked about how that mindset can be really bad, right? Because players just sort of have this subconscious invisible pressure, and we talked about this in hockey with big players like Jaromir Jagr, right? Like everybody knows Wayne Gretzky. Imagine you're a rookie in the NHL and you're playing on the first line with Wayne Gretzky. What do you do when you get the puck? You get the puck to Wayne Gretzky, right? And I'm not saying that might not have worked, but that's not a tactic, right?
Oh, it's not.
Tactics is not hit the ball to this one dude, right? Tactics are how the team plays. And I'm worried that at times we overstress certain players, right? Tyler Adams has been a player that we overstressed. And it's because of that role, right? U.S. Soccer wants to build out of the central defensive midfielder. And if he has a bad game, oh my gosh, we're going to lose. And if he has a great game, then it's the reason that we won. And it goes synonymous with winning and losing. If the United States wins, it's because all we hear about is Adams being a central player and winning tackles and playing the ball up, or Michael Bradley or whoever it was. And when we lose, it's we couldn't get the ball to him and we couldn't build out of the back. We couldn't do whatever. And we're putting so much stress on these individual players that don't have that much of an impact because it's stopping us from seeing the bigger glaring issues. Like, am I crazy? Chris, like, what's your take on this?
I mean, not wrong. I don't think it's quite as extreme, maybe as you paint it there. But you're not wrong. I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. It does come down to just being unsure and being not entirely confident of what they're supposed to do and where they're supposed to go on the field. And that does come down to the coaching. But it also does come down to your leadership on the field. We're so excited about all these new young talents, all these guys who are so skilled, and they've been playing all their lives, and they've been playing in Europe since they were, young or, in their early teens. And we're so excited about that. But then we forget that, like, you do actually need some veteran leadership out there to get them past all of that hesitation into just playing the game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Which is why we actually did have some really good moments in qualifying, and Kellen Acosta came in. And I think that aspect is part of why is he knows his place, he knows his role. He's not
Mm-hmm.
worried about any of that other stuff, and so he's able to just play the game, and he's able to talk in the ears of all the other guys to get them to just focus on what they're supposed to be doing and not worrying
Right.
about any of that other outside stuff.
Right.
Um, I mean, you absolutely can see. Oh, there was that run by Gio. Was it against Mexico?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was against
The
Mexico.
second qualifying game against Mexico, right? Where he ran through like 6 defenders, and eventually, he got stuffed in the box. You watch him on that play. He didn't do that because he was trying to make some amazing play. Did that because he had no other options.
Mm-hmm.
It was like he won the ball, and the rest of the team was like, "Oh, he's just going to pass it to Christian." And you saw Christian make a good run up the side, and the defenders followed him, and nobody else on the team did anything.
Right.
Just like kind of jogged up and watched what was going on. So Gio is trying to, he's trying to make a good play. He's trying to do something, and nobody's moving, nobody's making a run. Like you said, he doesn't know what is going on around him. Yeah, he makes this incredible run, beating like 6 defenders on his way because he had no other choice. It was
Mm-hmm.
his only option.
Right.
And that's a problem.
It is a problem, and the big difference that we see between top EPL and Champions League teams, um, and not, or I'm not going to just compare us to the United States, but in other teams is players that want the ball, right? Like so many times you see guys getting frustrated because they're the one that you play me the ball, right? You play me the ball, like I want the ball, and there are times where that's super bad, right? You get those like arrogant, just guys that just like they just believe I'm the guy, I'm the target guy, you're supposed to play me the ball, but like for the United States. We've seen at times this really prevalent attitude that like once I get rid of the ball, my job's done, and hey, that's on him. Like I gave him the ball. I'm done. I don't have to worry about it. And we don't see a whole team of guys hustling saying, I want the ball. Now, we do see it consistently in the midfield, right? So from about the midway line of the half and the midway line of the half, this whole space that everybody wants the ball, right? Our defensive third, no, not so much. Just get rid of it. Like, what are you doing? And in the offensive third, I don't know. Maybe try again. Like, we do so well in the middle of the field, but we just don't have anybody who wants the ball up front. And we really don't have anybody, like, in the back. It's embarrassing, right? And if it's true, like, I don't know if Berhalter wants us to build out of the back or not, right? I know he wants us to play through Tyler Adams just because U.S. soccer has always played through the center defensive mid. But, man, if he really wants us to play out of the back with some of our wingers, it's embarrassing watching our wing backs and our center backs try to do it. I mean, literally, we had games where we started possessing the ball. We had moved the ball out of danger. We had switched the field. The ball was now coming up the other side of the field. We are out of danger. And our right back just goes, I'm supposed to go backwards with it. Like it's like I felt like a robot. Like Greg told me to do this, so I'm gonna turn my brain off, and it just hit it back into danger. And all of a sudden we have a turnover, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what are we doing? Backdating U.S. soccer. Let's go back 8 years when we had that struggle of conceding goals in the first 4 minutes of every game. Defensively, we played a tactic of everybody panic and just get as many numbers back as you can, and like nobody worry about marking anybody, just hope you're close to someone. And again, that's an extreme portrait of that, but there has to be, let me tie this into what you had said. The reason I believe those things happen, and they will happen for the guys we have on the field, is because without that veteran leader to stand on the field, to grab hold of his guys, whether metaphorically or physically, because you've seen guys physically grab them and say, hey, and to be able to make a comment like, no, stop, don't worry about that's not your job. You worry about him, right? Or like, hey, what do you that ball's going here, right? Like, or to and to be able to say this isn't working. Switch. Stop trying to play the ball over the top. They're eating us up all day, right? Start going through to our feet. Without that guy on the field to be able to make that tactical change, we do see an increased, like, not transparency, but like it's this increase to the visibility of the problem that we have, right? The issue that we have with players not knowing really what to do has become more visible, more prevalent because we lack that leader.
I think that's very true. This is part of why a lot of people have talked about the 2026 World Cup as like our target World Cup. Of like, oh, that's the one that we're really thinking we're going to do well at. Um, I think that's a valid beef because a lot of these guys do lack some experience, and they're going to get stuck in their heads and
Right.
have just lapses and mental fatigue. At you have a lot more experience in the game, it's just not going to be there. Oh, but with that being said, we still want to do the best we can in this World Cup. We still want to,
Agreed.
we want to make it. Want to make it into those later rounds, make the quarterfinals, make the semifinals.
Right. Get some valuable experience. We can't just stink it up the whole time.
Yeah. So how do we do that this time? I think it's got to come down to Berhalter, tactic, and then guys like Sick and Adams, and Adams is a very vocal leader and wants to be a leader, and I think he mostly does a pretty good job of it. Sick, he's not a natural leader, I don't think. He's gonna have to be more of one just because he does have that role of being the guy and the star.
Mm-hmm.
And for this World Cup, I think for next World Cup, it's not going to be something he has to worry about because the other guys are going to have so much more experience, so much more time in the spotlight. There's not going to be as big of a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
But for this World Cup specifically, he needs to be able to step up and say to his teammates, "We are a team. Do
Right.
your job, I'll do my job, and we will succeed."
Right, and we'll make it work. And there is a big difference between, I think Christian Pulisic is probably a very valuable person to have in the locker room, a very valuable person to have at practice. But I'd rather have like a Walker Zimmerman, right, during the game, or a Kellen Acosta during the game, just because they're that much more vocal. But so let's put this to the test. Let's have this make sense. The United States versus Wales. What tactics are you expecting Wales to implement? What would you like to see the United States implement to deal with it?
Well, Wales, I do think, and we talked about this a little bit in their lineups. Wales is likely to play a lot of that counter-attacking style. They're not going to try to possess the ball. They're not going to high press. They're going to sit back. They're going to, like you said, nobody gets behind us. We're going to deal with anything that comes towards the box, and we're going to win the ball. And when we have a chance, we're going to counterattack. They have speed in their attacking line, and they do have some good finishing. So going to take that form. They're going to soak up as much pressure as they can, break on the counterattacks, and they have good counterattacks. So it's something we definitely need to be aware of. As far as how we respond to that, I think we need to can't try to be Manchester City. And City, when they come up against that type of opponent like Tottenham, say, okay, we'll just keep passing the ball around and we'll move it back and forth and in and out until something opens up. we don't have the players for that. We don't have the um, experience or the skill level for that. And so it's something we are going to have to figure out a way to force them to open up the game a little bit. And I think that, is going to be like trying to play more decisive, forward-minded attacking style. We're not going to should not try to, um, move the ball around and find the perfect opening. We need to risk balls into the box. We need to risk guys, taking players on one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that opens us up to that counterattack. If we know that that's what we're trying to do, our defense can be ready for the counterattack, ready to win it back, because that's when we'll score. Is when they try to counterattack, open up, we win the ball back in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
their counterattack, then overwhelm them going forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we'll score. And so we need
Exactly.
to figure out how to get them to open up like that.
Right. And those would be the things I'd be saying to my team. If I was Greg, I'd be making sure that when we have the ball, we're doing something with it, right? So if we lose the ball, it better be going out of bounds, right? I want to see, I'm talking corner kicks, goal kicks, right? And like you said, that like Tyler Adams is going to be a huge factor in this game because when they try to transition, it has to get shut down. And if Wales starts to stretch, like you said, and we win the ball back somewhere near midfield, and we can turn on them and just go like boom, 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 and hit a couple balls through, we can create some dangerous chances. But all of that being said, we know how they're probably going to try to play, right? We're expecting Wales to come in knowing we can possess, believing that they're not going to see a lot of the ball, probably not wanting to. The United States has to be dangerous with the ball. We have to create opportunities. We have to be bold and take chances, and they have to be quality, right? We can't see a whole game of Christian Pasilic hitting just wank, terrible free kicks into nowhere, right? Like, they got to be dangerous. They got to be on point.
Thankfully, Gio will be there, and Gio can take the free kicks.
Correct.
Better
And maybe
attack.
we see it. Maybe we see Acosta in there too, taking some of those free kicks. He's good at them, right? And he knows where the ball's got to be. Okay, now going forward, right? We're 4 days later. The United States, England, right? This is the game, right? It's Black Friday. Everybody's going to be watching. Everybody's going to be hyped up, regardless of the result that we get. Okay, so let's just go completely neutral, regardless of the result that we got against Wales. What are we expecting England to do, and how do we beat it?
Yeah, how do we beat it?
Right. I mean, because England's tough. I look at England's roster, and it's kind of like, how do you even determine what's the one thing England might do when they're so capable of doing 3 or 4 different things and switching gears, on the fly?
That's where I do think if you're looking for club analogies, England are I would say a lot of like Chelsea maybe. They don't necessarily have a tactics identity all the time. They are very flexible. They are very malleable because they have a lot of skilled, capable players who are dangerous. And so they can play in a lot of different styles. Now, how they are going to play is a little bit tough to say because they are trying to mesh Harry Kane and Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, who are all like very different types of players.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I do believe they are going to possess the ball. They're not going to be as high press as say Germany or Spain likely would be. They are going to have a pretty strong press. They're going to want to win the ball back in their opponent's half. They're not going to want to come all the way back to their own half. They are going to move the ball around well. And so how do we beat that? I don't know that our team has the ability to sit back and just soak up all the pressure like
I was
some
really
teams
hoping you were going
will.
to say, I don't think our team has the ability to beat that. And I was going to be like, that's the right answer.
I mean, maybe that's what we're getting to.
Right.
But we have actually had teams in the past U.S. teams were capable of sitting, back in a super low block, 4 defenders and 4 midfielders way back in the ball, have a good counterattack, and score some, opportunistic goals. This team, I don't think, is capable of that. Our midfield is not designed that way. Our defenders don't necessarily have that presence inside. So I think we need to be a little bit more proactive with our defense. We can't try to sit back and soak it up. We got to push up on their defenders. We have to attack their wingers when they have the ball. We can't just let them cross balls in or play balls through the middle. So how do we beat it? Like you said, I don't know that we can, but it's not going to happen by us waiting for England to do something.
Agreed. The thoughts that I have thinking about the England game are that because England is so flexible, because they are so fluid, when they attack, right, not only is the guy driving at the defender gaining that space, not only can that guy shoot, he's cutting inside. He has a guy overlapping. If you play the overlap can come back to that player. They can hit a flat ball into the box. They can hit a ball back across. While it's all crazy and complicated and I could run their plays, what does it mean defensively? We have to know who we have. Every single player on the United States cannot afford to get lost out on the field. You're gonna need to remember your mark. You're gonna need to know who has what guy. Are you taking the overlap or not? Are you on the ball or not? Who are the midfielders that are checking back? I believe that England is going to want us to work into the middle of the field, like you said, because they like attacking with 4 to 6 guys at a time, and they do that by winning the ball in the midfield and going forward quickly and waiting for you to lose, right? So they strip the ball in the middle of the field, and then all of a sudden it's 6 guys, full sprint, the crowd's roaring, and the announcers are like, and the break is on. And if you're not a soccer fan, you're like, what do you mean the break's on? It's like a 6-on-6. Right? Like, there's the same number of guys. But when you watch the way that they do it, they're just waiting for one person to make a misstep, right? Which person's going to slip up? And then all of a sudden, boom, the ball goes there. It's dangerous. Now, like I talked about, Robinson gets beat, so now Zimmerman's got to cover, and Raheem Sterling or Harry Kane's like, sweet, I'm unmarked, and then boom, the ball's in the box, it's on his feet, and he's in, right? I mean, the comment that my dad said, he's like, I watched the Tottenham game the other day, and I thought to myself, how the heck are we going to guard Harry Kane? We don't have a single player on the field who can do that. But if you think about it in that mentality, what's back up? What does that mean? We have to limit the amount of chances that he gets. We have to make sure that when he goes to get an opportunity, it's not a quality shot, it's not a quality chance, and we do that by making that choice. If we're committing to that mid-block, then we have to commit as a team, and that's what scares me. I don't know if we can press in the middle all together collectively. We've done it before. We did it against Mexico. We tried to do it against Jamaica. We've done it against Honduras. We've done it against Panama. We're capable of doing it. I don't know if it will work, but that's what I'd be telling my players to think about, because I do think offensively, if we just commit, right? Don't do anything fancy. Go up the field. I don't want to see the ball coming backwards in the final third. I want to see it whipped into the box. I want to see guys trying to get in there, and we're just going to hope it takes a favorable bounce and a guy gets their body on it, and we put the ball in the back of the net. Do you know anything about Iran's style? Right? Is it worth?
Not really.
Worth? Like I have no idea how I would even describe the tactics in Iran's game other than we're getting 3 points, so just let's possess the ball and create opportunities. Right?
I mean, obviously they made it to the World Cup. They have skill and some talent on their team. I have not watched any of their games, so no, I don't know exactly how they play. But yeah, I would say, we want to have a proactive approach of let's possess the ball, box, and, let's get complacent for the goals and try, win the ball back as soon as you can.
Agreed. All right, so sort of to wrap this up, we're going to take a second and we're going to talk about something that Chris and I were kind of chatting about before I hit the record button here, which is by design, the World Cup typically is played in the summer, right? If you're a fan of soccer, if you watch your Premier League or your La Liga or League One, The reason we're playing in the summer is because all this is wrapped up. We don't really got to worry about a whole lot of stuff going on, and we can get this stuff underway. And Chris, I have just pulled up the injury list from yesterday. Okay. I know we love the World Cup. Okay. Everybody loves the World Cup, but I need you, if you're listening, to just take a second, listen to what I have to say. These players are not making a living playing for their countries. Okay? The owner of Manchester City is going to be so angry if the player he's spending millions of dollars on gets hurt playing in the World Cup, because guess what? You have to pay that guy to sit on your bench the whole time he recovers, and you might be the person funding his surgery. Okay? So now that that's out of the way, I want to talk to you about this outrageous list of injuries. Okay. Argentina has 7 guys injured right now. Okay. Paulo Dybala, quad injury. Joaquin Correa, knee injury. Angel Di Maria, thigh injury. Alexi Salmakers, knee injury. Nicolas Gonzalez, hamstring. Giovanni Lacosta, muscle injury, right? Romelu Lukaku from Belgium's got a hamstring injury. Richarlison and Arthur Melo from Brazil are both hurt. Calvin Phillips, Smith Rowe, Reece James, Kyle Walker, all hurt for England. N'Golo Kante, Paul Pogba, Bobacur Kamara, Lucas Digne, Lucas Hernandez, Pascal Kimpepe, Rafa Varane, Geoffrey Kondogbia, and Jules Koundé, all hurt from France. Manuel Neuer, Thomas Muller, and Leroy Sané, all hurt for Germany. Tecatito has a fibia fracture for Mexico. It's massive. Raúl Jimenez has a hip injury. Both of those players are insanely talented players. They gave us a run for our money in CONCACAF. Mexico might be down both of those players. Netherlands, this guy doesn't really affect them too much. Diego Jota is out for Portugal with a calf injury. Rafael Guerrero is out with a hip injury. Spain has 5 guys out, all with injuries. Uruguay has 2 guys out with injuries. I mean, that's just that, you know, a small part of the list of some of these bigger teams. That's not including us, right? It's not. I mean, that was like 10 of the teams in the World Cup, right? There's so many injuries. You look at the injuries for the United States, okay, including them. Chris Richards is probably not going to come back. He's still not training. They've ruled him 7 to 10 days out. He's still not training. Weston McKennie has a thigh injury. He's going to be out. Matt Turner has a groin injury. Zach Steffen, I think he has a foot injury, a foot or a knee injury. Who is it? Luca De La Torre has a muscle tear, right? He's probably out. Right now, we're not close enough, or we're too close. Injuries, that's it, right? Heung-min Son is going to have surgery on his eye because he just took a shoulder in the face and he probably fractured his orbital bone. How much backlash is there going to be, do you think, if is all this going to taint the World Cup? Because that's my thought. My thought is, like, how is there not going to be backlash from, like, the fans and from an entertainment perspective? Like, as FIFA, as representative, some of your best players aren't going to be able to be there, and it's going to severely affect the outcome of some of these games.
Yeah, and people will try to say, like, well, injuries happen all the time, and by the time summer comes, most people have recovered because most injuries happen in, like, the middle of the season, which is around, December, January. That's when most of the injuries happen. So most of them have recovered by the summer. And then the other side of that is, because they just shoved the World Cup into the calendar year, all of the other competitions, got squeezed. So, you've had teams playing 2 games a week for, like, the past 6 weeks straight. So they're having more injuries because they're playing more with less rest.
Correct. And the weeks off that they had weren't weeks off. They were international breaks where they played for their countries.
So yes, I do think it's going to taint this World Cup. Don't really understand why they pushed for it to happen in the winter. Like, I get everything got pushed back due to COVID. obviously makes sense. Why not just push it to the summer of 23? Like, you
Hmm.
really think that the one extra year between World Cups somehow hurts the next World Cup more than shoving the World Cup into the middle of a season hurts the one right now? I don't get that logic.
Right. I completely agree. And you just mentioned how many games had to get played, right? Players playing twice the number of games they normally would have played. I mean, we saw not just Champions League games being played, but there were multiple EPL games being played in the same week, right? So not only is that having a factor on injuries, these players are about to get a 6-week break, right? Break. I'm using that as ironically, where they're going to play, the United States is going to play 3 games in the span of like 9 days. We're going to play on the 21st, we're going to play on the 25th, we're going to play on the 29th. Okay? If we make it out of the group, we're going to play another game 4 days later. So these players are going to be, they're going to finish up wherever they are. They're going to get on a plane, they're going to go all the way to Qatar. They're going to, try to get their life together in this tiny country, right? Smaller than Connecticut with these, but just pack everything in there. They're going to do all their practices, they're going to smash all these games, and then when it's all done, they're going to get on a plane and they're going to leave. The players are going to get the most rest are the players on the teams that are going to get knocked out, right?
Yeah, the ones
Because
who don't make it past the group stage are going to have the most rest.
right, and you're already looking at EPL teams and La Liga teams who are this is the point in the season, like you said, where you're going to your farm team and you're going to your it's not called farm team, it's your academy, but you're going to your under level teams, right? Like your level 1 or whatever it is. I don't know the terms of them. And you're pulling those guys up because all of a sudden playing opportunities have there because guys are getting surgery or guys are out on long-term IR, guys are getting hurt, and coaches got to mix it up. And on not only like it's like kicking somebody while they're down. You have these teams that are all hurt and these poor managers trying to figure it out. And on top of that, all these guys are going to go play for their country. And it's not like, it's like the Olympics, I guess, to an extent, right? But like the NHL players didn't, they didn't really care when they didn't get to play in the Olympics, right? We were done hearing about that. I mean, there was like a little bit of a stink at first, but it was basically over. I mean, the goalie for the Toledo Walleyes went to the Olympics, right? That was kind of cool for Toledo that our ECHL team's goalie got to travel. I don't think he played, but this is different. This is not as easy as just saying, no, you guys don't get to go. Because if all these managers put their foot down, like, you don't have a tournament anymore. And FIFA, and you know what I mean? And this is where obviously we could talk about corruption, but like FIFA is the governing body of everything. You tell FIFA you don't want your players to go to this. FIFA just looks at you and says, we're just going to, we could just try to shut down your division, your whole league here. So, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of it being in the middle of this. And, that's aside from an episode I want to touch on in the future where just about all the nonsense of Qatar. And, I think if you're somebody who's really genuinely curious, I think you need to look into it. You need to look into the human rights violations. You should know about the migrant deaths, and I don't want to talk about it now because it truly merits like its own research and individual attention. And if I do talk about it, I want to
A deeper conversation.
right. I want to have it dedicated because it's so much bigger than soccer. But it's also so much a part of soccer's culture. But anyway, I just, from an injury stance, from a screwing up the counter stance, from everything, like, I'm excited for it. I'm pumped to watch us play, but it has the, a lot can happen over the next couple weeks, and it has the ability to put a really bad taste in your mouth. If Weston McKennie doesn't come back, if Matt Turner doesn't get to come back, we already lost Miles Robinson. If Pasilic gets hurt, if Reyna gets another injury, like all of a sudden you have USA Soccer fans who are like, man, I really wish the World Cup wasn't happening right now.
I would have been totally okay with waiting until this, summer of 23.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I'm super excited to watch it. I'm pumped to see World Cups are always so exciting. I would have been perfectly happy to wait until the summer to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Well, let's see. So it's this weekend and next weekend are the last 2 weekends of games. So if there's any U.S. players who are trying to take a shot at making the 26-man roster, next Wednesday, Chris, I'm hoping that you're free to do an episode because the United States is going to reveal their 26-man roster, and I would love to talk to you about it and get our rant and vents out of the way as we just complain about the players that were selected, because I'm sure we're going to have some disagreements.
All right. Well, I'll try to plan ahead for that then.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. I know these have been longer episodes, but this is good stuff. I love talking soccer with you, Chris. I hope everybody else is enjoying it. If you are enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button, you leave a comment, you subscribe, you share some of these videos. We've been getting a lot more action on the page recently, which is exciting. It's good to hear. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in for Extra Time, and we will catch you next time.